Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larbi.
Hey everybody, I'm Sarah Larbi. Welcome back to another episode of Where Should I Invest? Today is the first day of the rest of my life. It is my first day of freedom from the 9-to-5 world. I'm super excited. October 1st, 2020 was my last day in the job world, the corporate world. And, you know, I'm super excited. I'm super sad. I mean, it was an amazing team. I had the best boss in the world and the company was amazing. But I will say that it is a job at the end of the day and I was working for somebody else. Now, that's not to say I'm just going to do nothing. And I still love to do real estate. I still am going to be active and I'm still going to be doing things. It's just not going to be in the corporate world. It's not going to be in the job world. So, you know, this was always a goal of mine. This was why I started real estate investing in the first place. I'm super excited to be able to not need the job income anymore and, you know, take some of the time back and figure out what I want to do and how I want to do it and where I want to, you know, work from or work in quotations because I love real estate and I probably always will be podcasting or doing something, webinars or whatnot, because it is truly my passion, but I can follow my passion. And that's not to say that I'm going to stop earning different types of income because it's important not to just have one source of income. And, you know, as many people say, you have to have a few different sources of income to become wealthy. And real estate is great and it's definitely a source, but it is not the only source of income. And you don't always want to have just one source of income. So I am super excited and thank you guys. If you have been listening to this for a while, thank you for your support. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for, you know, being here with me through this journey. And there's going to be lots more podcasts to come. And I just want to say, you know, I couldn't have done it without you guys, your encouragement. And also, you know, if this is something that you want to do, I'll tell you, it's not going to be quick, but it doesn't have to take 30 years either. So I'm going to be enjoying this weekend, my first weekend of freedom with the girlfriends, and we're going to be at the cottage. So got a group of 5 girls, and we're going to be talking about just things in general and catching up. It's been a little bit of time that we've all seen each other with everything that's been happening, but it is the first day of my new freedom. Today's guest is also an amazing investor, Mark Gonneau, who started investing at 18 years old, and he currently owns over 100 properties. Super, super great. Many insights that he's, you know, been able to share. His focus is mainly on multifamily commercial properties, but I'll tell you, you know, this is a guy doing it that's been able to, you know, start at a very young age, but keep his mind set in check and in the game, and just all the stuff that he's been able to accomplish is tremendous. So Mark Gonneau, thank you so much for your insights, and let's get on with the show. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Sarah?
Good, good. So we are recording this. It is March 24th. It'll probably come out at some point in June, but right now we are in the midst, hopefully this is the midst, and it hasn't still kept going since June, but we are in the midst of being at home. We just heard from Ford that Ontario is shutting down all non-essential businesses as of actually probably today. Yesterday was 36 hours, so tonight, I think it is?
Midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight. So how are you doing?
Doing all right, all things considered.
All right, awesome. So before we get into, you know, all the Corona stuff, which, you know, I don't know if I want to do this for this podcast because I think you have a lot of really interesting things. First and foremost, how did you get started in real estate to begin with?
The long version of the story is I first started looking at real estate when I was 15. And my brother and I thought that if we pooled the money we had together, we might be able to buy something. And so we quickly learned that the only thing we'd be able to buy would be, because quite frankly, we didn't even know about mortgages back then, would be like a bush lot in the middle of nowhere. And we realized that it wouldn't actually do anything for us. We'd have to pay property tax on it, so it would cost us money every year. So we shelved that idea. But then when I was in university, we looked at buying real estate again and ended up buying a house with my roommate at the time in university.
All right, awesome. So you bought a house with your roommate. What kind of house was it? How much was it? Where was it?
So it was a 3-bedroom semi. It was in the Leaside area of Toronto. We bought it for $230,000 in a bidding war. I remember being on the phone when I got the call. Well, actually, even before that, I remember we got home from school and there was a message on the answering machine from a real estate agent saying she found a great house for us, but we got to go take a look at it that night. So we went and took a look at it around 6 o'clock that night, and she was right. It was a great house for us. And we took a look at it. Then we got home. We got a call from the real estate agent, and she asked us what we thought. We said, hey, it's a great house. She's like, no, I need to know right now if you're going to put in an offer, because the offers are at 7 o'clock. I managed to delay them till 7:30 if you're going to put in an offer. So my roommate and I chatted about it for a couple minutes and decided, sure, let's throw in an offer. We put in an offer, and then I remember getting a call at 9 o'clock, and it was a real estate agent telling us we had got the house. And I remember walking out to tell my roommate, I'm like, Craig, we just got the house. And we both sort of looked at each other and like, okay, and kind of thought it was a good thing, but not entirely sure if it was a good thing. That next morning, actually at 6 something in the morning, I was scheduled to get on a plane to go to the Bahamas as part of an award that I had won from a job that I had. So I was then in the Bahamas for the next 4 days, which left my roommate to arrange the mortgage. And I remember calling my dad up and telling him, great news, we bought a house. And my dad's like, great, congratulations. And I said, so I just need you to co-sign on the mortgage. And my dad said, well, I'm not going to co-sign on a mortgage. I've never been in debt in my life, and I'm not going to be in debt, and certainly not for a house that you bought. And my response was, in hindsight, sort of very typical for my age, which was, but Dad, Craig's dad is going to co-sign. And my dad said, well, that's great for Craig, but I'm still not co-signing on your house. I said, well, we've already bought it. He said, well, you should have thought about this first. So a little bit of tough love for my dad, which then caused me to get creative. So I turned around and called my brother, who had just graduated from university. So he had a job, and called him up and said, do you want to buy a house? And since we had already been looking early on in our lives about the possibility of investing, he said, sure. So him, my roommate, and I, we all chipped in 10 grand. And thanks to my brother co-signing on the mortgage, we qualified for the mortgage. We put in what would now be considered an illegal basement apartment in it, where my roommate and I lived in the basement. And we assumed that we would just, we had the normal 3 bedrooms upstairs. We would just rent those out to classmates. And we assumed, since there was 3 years left in our program, that we would get 3 people and they'd stay with us for the 3 years, and then we'd sell it when we graduated. I actually counted a number of years ago, we had 15 different people go in and out of that house in those 3 years. Of course, because students are, well, let's face it, mobile, for lack of a better term. We never had a vacancy, but it was just a constant revolving door of people going in and out of that house. And
how do you decide the market rents? Like, did you have an idea of like the strategy when you bought the house? Did it just kind of fall into place?
Well, we actually did the math on the mortgage and the rest of the carrying costs for the property. So we determined that we were going to need to charge what was a normal market rent for student rooms in the area, which was $500 a month, essentially. And we would need to pay our own rent of $500 a month, so that there was all 5 of us paying $500 a month to give us $2,500 a month to carry the property. But then we knew that when we sold the property, we would get a bunch of what we had paid in rent over those 3 years, we'd get that back. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. So did you end up selling that one, and is that what happened?
Yeah, we ended up selling it after when we graduated, and we sold it so we bought it for $230. We sold it for $290, which, I mean, over 3 years isn't a huge amount, but for a couple of kids just graduating university, we all three of us each got our initial 10,000 back plus an extra 20,000 roughly, and I went into the real world, and
then the rest is history. So what do you have? What's your strategy today? Let's just fast forward a little bit. So that was your first one.
So yes, that was my first one. Then I went out into the real world and did the real world type of thing and paid off student loans and all that sort of stuff. And once those were all done, then I got back into investing in sort of a much larger way, I guess.
Okay. So there was a gap in between where you were doing no real estate?
Yeah. There was a gap of about 6 or 7 years while I paid off student loans and stuff.
Okay. So let's fast forward to today. What's your strategy today, and what does your portfolio look like?
So my strategy today is value add multifamily. So we buy sort of mid-size multifamily buildings, 12 unit, 20 unit type buildings. And we pool together some investors. We invest with some partners and buy the buildings. And then as we turn them over, we do the renovations to bring people in that are paying more rent and increase the value of the buildings. So that's what I focus on now.
So multifamily.
Yes.
So now, are you doing this by yourself? Are you still doing it with your brother? I'm guessing maybe not your roommate, but
No, I only ever did one deal with my roommate. Come to think of it, I ended up doing a number of deals. My brother and I, after that 6 or 7 year hiatus, my brother and I were the ones that were investing together for the next 10 years, let's call it. And we bought a decent amount of property together. It wasn't 100% where every single deal was each other's. We sort of have an unwritten rule where if either of us got a deal, we'd bring it up to the other brother, invite them in, see if they wanted to invest. If they wanted to invest, then we'd invest together. If they didn't want to invest, then we could do it on our own. So we did that for a while. My brother and I, we still own a number of properties together, but these last few purchases, the multifamily stuff, I've been doing on my own and with another partner.
Okay. Now, are you doing this with like JVs, private money? How are you getting these financed?
So the ones that I did with my brother, the first ones all the way through, we just self-financed all of those. And then it's interesting because I actually took 2 sort of 6-year hiatuses. There was between university and when I first started investing in real estate where I was paying off student loans. And then there was another 6-year hiatus when after my daughter was born and eventually my son was born, I took 6 years off and I didn't invest in real estate for those 6 years. And then have gotten back into it in the past couple of years now that the kids are a little older. And so in the past couple of years, these are ones that we've been focusing on the multifamily value add plays. And these are ones that we're focusing with raising investor money to pool that together to take down some bigger deals.
Awesome. So what's an example of deals that you like to buy that you're like, I'm going to be able to create some great value? And let's talk about timelines as well, because you're buying these, I'm guessing, in Ontario.
Currently buying in Ontario, yes.
Okay.
I do have investments in Alberta, BC, and I did actually invest overseas as well years and years ago.
All right. So what's an example of a deal that you'd be interested in buying, and how do you get it to higher ARV essentially?
Yeah, so I mean, we actually have got a live deal right now that we're still in DD phase with. It's a 12-unit building in Barrie. It was built in 1998, so it's nice because the other buildings that we've done have been a little bit older, more in Hamilton. So this one is nice where it's all concrete block concrete slab construction, pitched roof, Everything is relatively nice in the building. But again, we're looking at an average rent right now of $11.64. And my apologies. We're looking at average rent right now of $11.64, and current market rent on that building as is $14.50. And with some really minor renovations, I'm talking about $10,000 worth of renovations, we're confident that we can boost that up to about $15.75 per month.
Awesome. So obviously, what do you do to get the tenants to essentially choose to leave, or do you kind of just wait and hope that they leave on their own? Like, how do you handle that?
So first and foremost, it comes with actually choosing the building properly. I use the Hamilton building that we bought last year as a really good example of this. When I was looking at the Hamilton building, one of the things that I noticed was out of the 12 units that were there, 10 of the units were occupied by millennial couples. And as I joke, I mean, millennial couples, that relationship is unstable. And it's either going to go well or it's not going to go well. But either way, considering that building was all one-bedroom units, it meant that either way they were moving out on their own. Either the relationship goes well and they get married, they have kids, and they outgrow a one-bedroom unit, or a relationship doesn't go well and they they give their notice.
Right.
So that building, for instance, we purchased that in March. And by January 1st, we'd had 5 of 12 units turnover, just natural turnover.
And then you just take the advantage there to renovate. You can bring up the rent at that point in time.
Yeah, that building, the average rent was $904 a month when we bought it, and the market rent was $14.50. So, and required about a $40,000 renovation for each unit there. So as they move out, we renovate, we bring them really to as close to condo standards as you can get on a 70 or 80-year-old apartment, 12 unit apartment building.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's quite interesting. And then essentially, at what point do you go back to the bank? And I'm guessing that the whole point is to reuse your money and to refinance it out once you've got the net operating income increased.
Well, exactly. So we set up that mortgage on the one in Hamilton. We set it up with a 2-year mortgage. The first year was interest only. Second year was amortized. But we're already, because we had so many units turnover in the first year, we're already in talks with the bank to go back and refinance that out right now, which means we're just going to be able to return money to the investors that much quicker than we anticipated.
Now, your investors, are they just money investors, or are they in equity as well?
You mean debt versus equity?
Yeah, like do they get a share of the pie? Like, or are they just loading out money for a fixed percentage?
So we do equity investors. So we're just at this point partnering with the friends, family, close business associates. It's not something that we're syndicating at this point in time. It's not something we're going out to the public and advertising for. So we simply bring them in as equity partners in the deal.
Okay, awesome. So what's next for you? I mean, 2020 is already like a crazy year, but I mean, but what are some of the things that you do want to accomplish once all this craziness and chaos subsides a little?
Yeah, so I'd set a goal to buy another 100 doors this year. Like I said, I had grown to 100 doors before I took the 6 years off after we had the kids, and then I've decided that I've been on the sidelines for a little too long, and it's time to get back in it. So I decided that I wanted to do another 100 doors this year. I'm not sure how COVID's going to impact that. To be honest, I think it's actually going to make it easier to acquire the 100 doors, but time will tell. One of the hardest things up until COVID hit was actually deal flow, where it's quite difficult to not only find a building, but find a good building. I mean, I'll talk to people. I mean, if you're wanting to invest in condos, there's 1 billion condos that you can invest in, and they're all virtually the same. But if you're wanting to invest in 20 unit or 30 unit multifamily buildings, there's only so many of them around. There's only so many that are for sale. And quite frankly, there's only so many of those that you would actually want to buy. Um,
Yeah,
so the
that's a great point. Like, how are you finding, like, before COVID, like, how are you finding these deals?
ground and pound. Um, just networking as much as I can. So having connection, like talking to actual building owners that I know of, talking to property managers, talking to realtors, anybody and everybody I can. I try to see if I can get the deals through them. Some of the deals come through MLS. Some of the deals come privately. I'm not picky on where they come from. I'm just picky on what type of deals I accept.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some deals that you would say avoid these types of deals? They're not good for you, and what does that look like?
So, I mean, probably the best example is when I was actually doing my research on the Hamilton building, another building in Hamilton came up that had a lot of the things that I would normally like. It was purpose built. It was concrete construction. It had below market rents. It was undermanaged, but it had the potential to be good things. But again, getting back to the demographics, I went and looked at that building. It was a smaller building. It was only a sixplex, and I met 3 out of the 6 tenants, and all 3 were 70-year-old single men. And to me, they're never going to move anywhere. The building
They're the
can literally
lifers.
be, they're lifers. The building can literally be crumbling down around them and they won't move. So in that situation, it doesn't matter how much of a difference there is between current market rent and what those tenants are paying, because if they never move out, you can never realize that increase in value.
Yeah, absolutely. And like cash for keys, I know people talk about it, but it doesn't always happen. Like if somebody's so far below market and you're offering them even 5,000 and they know that they go somewhere else and they're going to chew through that in 3 months versus maybe 12 of what they're currently at, they're not
Mm-hmm.
going to take your 5 grand.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate that I haven't had to do cash for keys. It's not something that I like to do. It's not something that I want to do. Um, that could very easily change in the future. But I I mean, if you pick the building well, you're going to have a better chance of having the natural turnover happen for you. Um, and I also, when I do my due diligence on the building, like this building we're analyzing in Barrie right now, I'm not expecting to turn over all the units. So when I run my analysis, it's in order for me to hit the return that I'm looking for on the building, the return that I want to provide my partners on the building. When I run my numbers assuming no more than 75% of the units turn over. I don't want to assume 100%, and I definitely don't want to have to need 100% of the units to turn over to make that building work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point for sure. So you're in Barrie. How are you managing all of your units that you've got currently?
I've always had property managers for all my buildings. The only things I've ever managed myself is a couple of rent to owns. I've been investing for a number of years and I've done a number of different things. So I have done rent to owns, I have done burrs, I have done flips, I've done single families, I've done duplexes, triplexes, and multifamilies. I've done bridge financing. I mean, I've done RSP loans, I've done lots of different things, but I've always used third-party property managers. One, because when I'm investing in Alberta or when I'm investing in BC, I can't possibly manage those myself here in Ontario. You have to have third-party property managers. But even the buildings that are here in Ontario, I always use third-party property managers. And to me, it's about paying the professionals who are good at what they're good at to do the job. When I talk with other investors, the analogy I use is it's like painting. So sure, if your apartment turned over, you could probably learn how to paint an apartment and clean it up yourself. Just like you could learn how to be a property manager, you could learn all the different rules and what sort of forms you need to send and when. But at the end of the day, is your time best spent spending your weekend repainting a unit and cleaning it out, or are you better painting like hiring a painter to do that unit for you so that you can do things such as finding the next deal or talking to investors.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I mean, for buildings, 100%, I wouldn't want to manage those. Like the single families are a whole different ballgame, right? But once you get into multifamily, hiring it out is good. How do you find a good property manager? Like, how do you know there's going to be, the right one for you in Edmonton or Calgary?
Trial and error is one of them, of course. But I mean, as with anything else, there is a community out there. And so if I'm investing in BC, then I'm talking to the community in BC even before I go out there to invest. And I'm already building the team out in BC when it comes to realtors and property managers that are out there. So I make sure I'm comfortable with who those people are before I go out there and buy the properties. And then once I go out and buy the properties, I still am meeting with the realtors and the property managers at the time. And it's possible that you get, even with the recommendations from other investors in the community that are local to that area, it is possible that you get one that doesn't work out as well. And then you simply have to reach back out in the community and pivot and shift over to a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. Learn how to manage the manager, but it's also important that you know what procedures you would want to do for your properties so that you're also figuring out what theirs are and that you go hand in hand. Screening tenants, are they just putting the first, like there's some great property managers out there and there are some that are like, they're just going to call themselves property managers and they're going to start and they don't really know a whole lot about the landlord tenant rules and regulations, the Residential Tenancies Act in Ontario, or have the processes in place to be able to really hold the ship in the right direction. And so property management, I mean, I think it can make or break your investments.
Oh, definitely. So something that I did, for instance, when I went out looking for property managers, like I said, first I went to the community of real estate investors to get referrals and recommendations. Then when I was out there, I met with them, but then I also asked those property managers for examples of buildings that they are currently managing. Then I drove to those buildings and took a look at those buildings to see what sort of physical condition they were in, what sort of tenant profile was in there. And then I actually spoke to some of the tenants in those buildings to see what they thought of the building, what they thought of the property management, what sort of things that they had difficulty with, what their complaints and concerns were about the property manager.
That's a great tip, guys. That 100% that's the tip of the show, I feel like. That's awesome. I love it. So I could keep asking a million questions, but for time purposes, the next part of the podcast is our lightning round. So Mark, I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions. You can give me the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite real estate investing book ever?
I go back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Right.
Sort of oldie but goodie.
That's it. Yeah. I think if I had to guess, 85% of people love that book and that's their favorite from these questions.
Yeah, it's a book that really got a lot of people thinking differently. And with everything, the change in mindset is the first change that has to occur before you even can fathom going out and buying a rental property. You have to have that mindset of, I'm actually want to go out and do something that's going to create some passive income that's going to potentially lead to something that I can use in my retirement down the road. But it's the mental change that has to happen first.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Question number 2, what is your favorite podcast?
Yours, of course.
Other than mine.
Other than yours. I'm admittedly, because I'm kind of old and just getting into listening to podcasts, I've listened to a few of Dave Dubois, Millionaire Mind Intensive with Patrick Francie is another one. Yeah, I'm just getting started in the world of podcasts.
Very cool. Question number 3, what do you do for fun aside from real estate?
Well, I have a soon-to-be 4-year-old and a soon-to-be 6-year-old. So what I do for fun usually involves toys and a child on my back at any given moment in time.
Awesome. Number 4, if you lost all of your money and your assets tomorrow, and you know what, I've always asked this question, but now with COVID, it's more so close.
Especially pressing.
Yeah. So question number 4, if you lost all of your money and your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
Yeah, I mean, again, you can take away somebody's money, but you're not going to take away their mindset. You're not going to take away their knowledge. And in all honesty, I've been having these sort of conversations with my wife in these past couple of weeks, given what was going on with COVID. And that's the whole thing. I mean, even if I lost everything and went bankrupt, then I still know how to analyze a building. I still know how to analyze a property. I still know how to go out and find that deal. And then it's simply, if you've got a good deal, there's got to be somebody out there with money who can help you find it and help you make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And last question, if somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, how would you recommend they spend it?
First question is, do they want to be hands-on or hands-off? And part of that goes with, do they know which end of a hammer to hold? If they're very first getting started, I would always recommend that they actually partner with somebody who's done it before, whether that be partnering with if they wanted to do flips because they want to be hands-on and they know how to, if not do some construction themselves, but at least know what's involved with it so that they can manage it and oversee it. Then partner with somebody who's been successful doing flips and do a couple with them before you go out and do it on your own. If you're not somebody that wants to be an active partner, then find somebody who has done a number of deals and is looking for passive partners, like myself with these projects that we're doing now.
All right, great advice. Thank you for playing the lightning round. Mark, where can listeners find you if they wanted to reach out and know more?
So because I'm old school, I still do email and phone calls. So email is mark.gonneau@gmail.com. Phone number, email me first and I'll send you my phone number. Probably is the best way to do it. I actually, about a month ago, got on Instagram for the first time. I'm trying to join the 1990s. No.
It's hilarious because you're saying you're old, but you actually look really young. So like, I don't know what the secret is.
I chose my parents well. So Instagram, I am at the Armchair Investor, which I'm surprised nobody else actually took that Instagram handle, but that is me.
Clever handle. And Mark, can you spell your name so people can email you?
Yes, Gonneau, and it's Mark with a K. As I like to joke, English first name, French last name. The French was bred out of me.
Very nice. Any final last words of advice for the listeners?
Well, I mean, now that we're in the thick of this whole COVID thing, it's kind of hard not to do a COVID type of advice, which is like, buckle in and build a war chest because this is the time when you need it. But outside of COVID type messages, it's the biggest thing is your mindset. And then the biggest thing is really, my best advice is to partner with somebody that's done it before when you first get started. It's learn from their mistakes. I admittedly did everything myself going through, and while yes, I was quite successful, I could have shaved down my learning curve by years if I had partnered with other people who were more successful than I was and learned from their mistakes. It really is a way to exponentially increase the speed at which you're able to accomplish things.
Absolutely. Very well said. Mark, thank you so much for being on Where Should I Invest and sharing your wonderful insights, knowledge, expertise. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larbi. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?